All right, so fantastic. Thank you guys for joining me. We are going to discuss today how to get your real estate license in Florida this year, 2025. Now, you may be watching me from a different state, and if so, that's absolutely okay. But we're going to specifically cover Florida because that is the one state that I absolutely do know, but there's going to be some similarities from other states in here. Now, first and foremost, one of the things that you're going to do is you're going to need to decide, all right, what are you going to do first? Are you going to do your background check first, or are you going to take the class first? And that is a question that I get asked a lot is, chicken or the egg? What I recommend is I recommend that you do your background information first, because you have to find out if you are even going to qualify to sit for the state exam. If there's something in your background that is not going to allow you to sit for the state exam, you might as well find out that information before you spend any more money or you invest any time in taking the course. Now, if there's nothing in your background and you're like, well, I don't need to worry, then it really won't matter which one you do first. But I still always recommend that you do the background first. So let's talk about what that's going to look like. Now, in doing the background first, what you're going to do, and let's make this a little bit bigger, and let's take this out of here. Okay, so you're going to go to the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. And on this screen here, it is the number 2.myfloridalicense.com. Or if you just Google DBPR, then it's going to pull up, which is the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. And this site isn't specifically for real estate. This site is for anybody who's going to need a license in the state of Florida. So that is why it looks like this. So this is the first page that you're going to go to. And you see licensing and regulation here. You can go there. You've got other things like verify a license, file a complaint. This also, like I said, takes care of anybody who needs a license. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to licensing and regulation. Now, these are all the different licenses that you can get. We're going to look for real estate. And you see over here, you've got two types of real estate. You've got the Real Estate Appraisal Board, and then you've got the Real Estate Commission. If you're wanting to be an appraiser, then you're going to want to go to the appraisal board, or if you're going to be a sales associate or you're coming in as a broker from another state, then you're going to look for the real estate commission. You're going to click on that and it's going to take you to this screen. Now, I always tell everybody it will work out a lot easier for you if you read from top to bottom, left to right. And I understand everybody gets excited and they're just looking for what they're looking for, and then they never find it because they wouldn't slow down and actually read what is on the page. So we're going to do that painful process of reading what's on the page. So you have here applying for a license, which would be you. If you've already got a real estate license, which, okay, you would be managing it, renewing it, and then escrow deposit forms. You're probably not going to know what most of this is. What you're really looking for is apply for a license. And when you're applying for a license, these are the different types of licenses that you can get in real estate. If you've never been licensed before, you're most likely going to be looking just for the real estate associate license. Brokers could be somebody coming in from another state that meet the requirements, or a sales associate that is choosing to go from an associate to a broker. You may be a broker and you're looking to open up your own company, or someone who's never had a license choosing to open up your own company. You can also open a school. You can be an instructor, and then mutual recognition. But you are going to look for the sales associate license. And then there's other types of sales associate licenses in here. You are going to look for sales associate RE1. That is the one that you want. And you're going to click on that button. And it's going to have here, apply for a license, again, verify a license, what we saw on the previous page, but just in a different format for this page. Now, once you're on this page, it's going to give you the information that if you had the physical application in front of you, this is what you would be seeing. And it's going to tell you these are the requirements to be able to pass the background check for a real estate license in Florida. And so first things first, you have to be 18 years of age. When you apply for the license, you have to be 18 years of age or older. The second thing is that you need to have a social security number. Now, I will tell you that people think that you need a social security number because they're going to check your credit. They don't give a they don't care about your credit. They are going to look for child support. They are going to make sure that you are up to date on your child support. So do not think you have to have a certain credit score or that you can't have filed bankruptcy. Again, that is not what they're looking for. Social Security is about checking to make sure you are current on child support. The next one is education. You must have a high school diploma or its equivalent. So a GED is going to be fine. You do not need to submit the high school diploma or its equivalent. You do not need to give them any of this information. They are asking you on the application, do you have one, but you don't physically send them anything. So if you're worried like, oh my gosh, I can't get my high school diploma, I don't have a copy of it, neither do I, most of us don't, you're going to be fine, okay? Next thing is that you're going to have your pre-license education done. Now, you may not have taken the class yet, and that's okay. It just says that you understand part of the requirement for being approved is that you are going to take and complete a 63-hour class. So 60 of it is the classroom work, and 3 hours of it is the exam. So a total of 63 hours, and you're going to have completed that course in the last 2 years. And then you will be able to say, okay, that one, you do not submit the paperwork with this application. You will take that paperwork that you've taken the class and you will take it with you to the testing facility. You don't need it when you make this application. Or you have completed a 4-year degree with a college that they recognize. So like the University of Florida has a 4-year degree real estate course, then you would say, I've completed that real estate course. So you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to take the 63-hour class and pass it and get a certificate, or you're going to have a 4-year degree from a college that's recognized. After that, and they've said, hey, you are now eligible to take the exam, you will then take the exam. That is where you'll bring your class certificate that you have actually passed the 63-hour class. So you will go and take your exam. And also it says another thing you have to do is pay a fee. Yes, you're going to have to pay a fee. You're going to pay a lot of fees. One of the fees is going to go to the state of Florida for your background check. Another fee is going to be Next Fingerprints. That's a whole separate entity. So whoever you're going to do your fingerprints with, they will collect money. Then when you go to take your class, that school is going to collect money. That will depend on the school that you are taking. And then when you go to sit for the state exam, that testing facility is going to take money. So no one person is going to be responsible for all the money. And every single person that you go to, it may vary depending on who you choose. What's not going to vary is the testing facility, and what's not going to vary is the state on their fees. But the school and the background check numbers will vary. It says you'll also need to do a fingerprint. It does not matter if you had your fingerprints taken yesterday and you were getting a super secret, super duper security clearance for the government. Doesn't matter. Every licensing type has a different kind of background check that they're going to run, and you're going to need a specific code for that. And so you will have to get your fingerprints done again. Again, it doesn't matter when you got them done or what you got them done for. You still have to get your fingerprints done again with this specific code so that they will look for it with this application. And then, of course, you're going to submit this application. So a lot of things in there. You got to be 18 years of age or older. You got to have a social security number. You're going to complete the pre-licensing course and pass it, or you're going to graduate with a college degree specifically in real estate. You're going to take a state exam and pass it. You're going to pay all appropriate fees, and you're going to have your fingerprints done, and you're going to submit this application. So what does this application look like? Let me show you. That's what it starts like. It says this application, you're going to have to pay It was 62.75, but they've changed it to 39.37. So, yay. This is what the application looks like. It's good to see this because this is what you're going to fill out when you do it online. And that would be my recommendation to you is that you go online and you fill this out. You could print this and you could fill it out and you can mail it in, but it can also get lost in the mail. And whoever opens this envelope is going to have to take this information, which they hope they can read, and they're going to have to put it into the system for you, which can lead to an error or a delay. So my recommendation is you do this online. But it says here you're going to pay your fee. This is an old application, so it says $62.75, but we've already seen that it's been reduced. So it says submit $39.37, even though it says $62.75. So remember, read top to bottom, left to right. It says make it payable to the Florida Department of Business and Professional Regulation. You're going to have to make sure you get your fingerprints done, any supporting documents that you need. You are going to be applying for the sales associate. And what's it going to ask you for? It's going to ask you, there's that social security number. There's your name. If you've got a different name, like you were married before, your date of birth, what is your gender? What is your mailing address? Where do you physically collect your mail now? What is your contact information? Make sure this is something that you actually check because communications are going to go to this email address. And if you give them something you don't check very often, you may miss information that's being sent to you and your time might run out. What is your residence address? You may be receiving mail at a post office box, but you physically live elsewhere. So what is that? Is there any other contact information? Do you have a second phone number, a second email address? Put as much stuff in here in which they can contact you if they have any questions. Here you will also put on there, do you currently have or previously held any license with the state of Florida? If so, this is where it's going to go. Maybe you're a nail tech or you're an appraiser or I'm trying to think what you might be, civil engineer, anything that you might have had or currently had a license is going to go here. And when did you have your license? And you may still have it, or you may have surrendered your license. So for example, I used to have a real insurance license. I had two different types of insurance licenses. I have chosen to leave that industry. So I put in here, there was at a time that I had a license. If you will notice, it doesn't ask you in the last 5 years or the last 10 years. They don't care. It's have you ever, ever. So if it's 50 years ago, they want to know, have you ever had a license? So put that in there if you've ever had a license with the DBPR in the state of Florida. Any prior names? If you've changed your name, they're going to look up all your different aliases on here. And then here's the question, are you a high school graduate or equivalent, or do you hold a degree? Are you an active member of the Florida Bar because you might be an attorney? Do you need any special accommodations? Background questions. Now, this is very important. And I see a lot of people end up in having to have a meeting with the Florida Real Estate Commission because this information is not filled out completely. Now, again, this is not time specific. This means ever in your life, and it's not specific to Florida. So don't read into this and go, well, this isn't going to apply to me because this was like so long ago or this happened in Utah. No, if this has ever happened to you, then it applies. So have you ever been convicted or found guilty of or entered a no contest, regardless of adjudication or jurisdiction, which covers the anywhere, or are you currently under criminal investigation? And so it's a very, very long paragraph. Please read that in its entirety. And you're going to ask me, well, what about a traffic violation? Well, guess what? Remember, read top to bottom, left to right. Here it says right here. It says if you've, any of these, but not parking, speeding, inspection, or traffic signal violations. Okay. So if it's just a parking ticket, they're not looking for that. And it says, if you've answered yes to any of this, you need to submit additional information. All right. Not like I answered yes, they'll find it. They probably won't. You're going to have to answer why you had to say yes to this. In addition to that, number 2, it says, have you ever had a judgment or decree of a court but has been entered against you in any state, district, territory, possession, or nation related to the practice or profession in which you are applying to? So if you are in Iceland and they say, hey, we're going to take your license away from you in Iceland for real estate, you're going to have to answer the question here. It says, have you ever had an application or registration certificate denied? So if you've applied in another state and they've turned you down, you're going to have to answer yes and why. And then has your license ever been revoked? So answer any one question yes, you're going to have to give information. Next section is, here's room for information. Now you have some pages here. And if you say, wait a second, Tammy, I'm going to need more paper. By all means, photocopy as many times as you need so that you can fill it all in. If you do this online, you'll be able just to keep adding and adding and adding. Now, whatever it is you've answered yes to, go into full detail as to what happened. If you said, here's the date, here's the time, here's what I've done, here's my case number, you're going to be able to upload documents supporting what happened. And you could say, here is the result. Nothing happened to it, or I served my time and I'm out now. Whatever it is, fill it out in its entirety so that when they're reading this document and they say, okay, there's an issue, and they can read through and find everything and they go, okay, so everything has been satisfied properly. I'm good to go. But it's when you don't completely fill out all the information and a question comes up like, well, what was the result? What was the outcome? I see that this happened, but we didn't ever discuss what was the resolution. They're going to pull you in for a meeting, and that's going to take time. It's going to delay your application. You probably would have got the same positive outcome, but now you're going to have to spend time having to do it. And they're going to ask you the same things in the meeting that they're going to ask you here, which was, what's the outcome? Do you have any supporting documents? So a lot of this can be taken care of ahead of time if you will just fill it out in its entirety right here, right now. And the other thing that happens is if you leave something out and they find it, they're absolutely going to flag you and have you come in because they're going to need to know you didn't say anything about this thing over here, and we need to know more about it. And why did you leave it off? And the answer, obviously, most of the time is you just forgot. I don't remember every part of my life. I just don't. So this is where most people get delayed, is that they didn't fill this information out accurately or completely. And then it says here, you're signing stating that everything is true that you have said in here. Now, and then it goes on to further explain what each one of these things are in case you do not understand. And the great thing is this has got links on here. So if you need to go to some place and find out, you can click on the link. So did you see that there wasn't any place to attach your high school diploma? Doesn't mean they're not going to check to make sure you graduated, but they're just not going to need that documentation. So do not sweat that. Now, one of the things that you do need to do is you need to do your fingerprints. And so on here, it says, hey, if you want to know where can you get your fingerprints, there's this whole section right here. It says electronic fingerprints. If you're wanting to know, well, what are the testing facilities that I can go to? There's a section here that says this is the exam vendor. And then you've got a link to go to find out where can you take your exams. So remember I said you're going to need fingerprints. And the question that everybody asks me is, well, where do I get my fingerprints done? They're constantly changing. There's a lot of different vendors out there. And so let us open a new tab. The other place that you can find about fingerprints is over here on the right-hand side. It says, look at this word. It's kind of funny. Fingerprints. Yep, there it is. So you can click on it here as well, and it will take you to the page on fingerprints. Now, on the fingerprints, you are going to need a number. And on here it says they're going to ask you for this thing. It's called the originating agency identification number. Now, remember when I said it doesn't matter what kind of license you have now with somebody else or what kind of background check you've done. This number tells them exactly what they should be looking for on your background check, which may be different from the other licenses that you've received. So you are going to need this number. And if you get the number wrong, they're going to run the wrong background check for you, and you're going to have to do the background check and pay the fees all over again. So it also has here, if you want a list of the providers, you can get the list of providers right here. And then there's a bunch of Q&A. So if we go to the list of providers, you've got a nice long list of registered providers. Let's see if this is it right here. List, oh, there we are. Here we are at the bottom. Here's the current list. There are 70 pages. Yeah, 70 pages on here. And there's the contact information for every single one. So this is why I don't know who the providers are, because they're constantly changing and being added or taken away. Their addresses are being changed. So you will see on most of these that you don't even have an address on here. You basically got a phone number and an email address. And that's because their addresses constantly are changing. So you will go on each one and you'll click on it. It's a lot harder to click on somebody who's just got an email address versus somebody who's got a website. So you can go to the website and find out where they are. And why do they not put the addresses? A lot of the fingerprint places that I know of in my market, there's not like, I mean, you can go to the sheriff's department or the police department, but many of them are like renting a space inside of a business. So one of them is like rent-a-centers, furniture rent-a-centers. So one of the places that I know of here locally is they work at this rent-a-center on Mondays, and you book an appointment and you go in and get your fingerprint done. But on Wednesday, they're at a whole different address and you go there and get your fingerprints done. So this is where you will find a fingerprint provider, and every one of them is going to have their own fees. So you will contact and work with them regarding your fingerprints. My recommendation to you is to go get your fingerprints done first. Where do I get my code? Here's your code. Where do you get that code? What's the code that you need? There is your code. Real estate sales and brokers, that is your code. Okay? So my recommendation is you find out who the fingerprint provider is. You go there and schedule your appointment. You get your fingerprints done. They're going to ask you for the code. You give them the code. Once your fingerprints are done, then I go online and I do my application. And why do I do it in that order? When I hit yes and finished on my application, it is going to go and look for the fingerprints right then. And guess what? If you haven't done them, there's no fingerprints to be found. But if you've already done your fingerprints and you wait like a day or two and then you do your application, then they're going to be like, oh, there's the fingerprints, and they will start the background check. Otherwise, if you do your application first and then it takes 3 weeks for you to get your fingerprint done, there's nothing happening. They do nothing with the information on your application until it can find the fingerprints and marry the two together. So get your fingerprints done first, get your application done. You will breeze through it probably and be approved to get your license done. But if there's any hiccup and you need to sit down with the FREC or the Florida Real Estate Commission, then you can go ahead and do that. Let's say you don't have anything on there and you get a notification that comes back and says you are exam eligible. Okay? Exam eligible. It means that you can go take the state exam. But guess what? You can't take that state exam unless you bring in a piece of paper that says you have taken and passed the class exam. So even though you are exam eligible for the state, you still need to bring in that piece of paper. You can even book an appointment. Honestly, you could make the mistake of booking an exam appointment, paying the fee for it, showing up to take the state exam, and then they say, hey, where's your piece of paper? and you go, I don't have a piece of paper, you're not going to get a refund for occupying the time because you're supposed to bring your piece of paper with you. So, where do you go and take your class? That's the next step. So, let's talk about that. On the classes, you can choose to take an in-person class or an online class. You got to decide what is your best personality for studying. If you're somebody who is like, I am working a full-time job, I do not do well in a classroom setting, I do really, really well studying and reading on my own, then an online class is going to be really, really good for you. But if you're like, no, I just don't understand what they're saying, I need examples, I'm motivated by being around other people, then you are going to look for an in-person class. There are, of course, more online classes and they are less expensive than in-person classes. If you are in a smaller city, there may not be a whole lot of classes, so you'll kind of have to take them when you can. But if you're in a bigger city, in a bigger market like Orlando, Miami, Tampa, you're going to have a lot of options on classes, dates, and times. Now, classes can be anything in person. They could be straight through 7 days. They could be nights. They could be weekends. They could be over a course of a month. You pick what is best for you. Now, what I find for most people, and this is hard, is that most people do better if they just take the class like all the way through. Like I call it 7 days hard. You come in not 8 to 6 for 7 days straight, and you get through the class and you take the class exam. That is intense. I'm not going to lie. That is really, really intense. And halfway through, like your brain is mush, but everything is in there. You just may not realize it's in there, and it's in there, and you're retaining it, and you can regurgitate it for the exam, and you will have a better likelihood of passing the exam. But if you take this thing and you draw it out over months or weeks, you will forget what you did on day one when you are on the last day, because it could be literally months apart. And I find that the failure ratio is higher the longer you are between the start of the class and the end of the class. Now, that also goes for your online class. If you're somebody who's going to take it online and you're like, I'm going to knock this thing out in 2 weeks because I'm going to study on nights and weekends for X number of hours a day and I'm going to get this done, they will pass. The passing rate for them is a lot higher than it is if somebody takes the class and then a year later they finish it. They're going to have forgotten everything at the beginning. So my recommendation is find when you can dedicate the time to do it and then just sit down and knock it out. And then guess what? Remember I said that your application with the state was already processed. They're just waiting for that certificate. So if you finish this class, let's say on Thursday, and you've already got your paperwork from the state that's like, come on in and take the exam, you can schedule for your exam to be taken just a couple days later, and you can roll straight from the state class exam into the state exam. And the retention is the best right then and there. So that is what I would do. Now, let's also talk about the online classes. I have, this is my school. I am not at this time doing in-person classes. Now, for me, we are in a small market. So to try to find enough people that were going to come to the class and make it worth my while to take off more than 63 hours and teach, there was only like 1 or 2 people that were going to come, and it just wasn't honestly worth the time. But if you're in a bigger market, you can find an in-person class. I did my sales associate license online because I'm in the Gainesville market, not a lot of in-person classes. And I was able to do it online, knock it out in a couple of weeks, but I did my broker license in person. I mean, that test is really, really hard. So I knew I was going to need to be in person and ask a lot of questions. And for that one, I actually stayed at a friend's house for that class for that entire week so that I was in a large city and able to do that. But you got to do what's right for you. If you're interested in it, all the classes are here and you can just go online. I know it says in person, but there's no in person, but you can go online. Now, there are just a few companies that handle the online classes for all of the schools. Now, there are some places like some schools write their own content and they have to submit it to the state. and then the state will approve the content. But other people like myself, we go to a vendor that says, hey, we will provide the back-end support for the online class. You just have to pay us. And so you will see that it doesn't matter what our front-facing website looks like. The back end is still some of the major, like 3 companies out there. So what it's going to come down to now is bundles and pricing. Some schools, this is their business. It is their livelihood. So they charge a higher fee, and then they have these bundles of all these books and test banks and study materials. And so what could be maybe a couple $100 course is now a $700 course because you're buying all of the add-ons, and that is how that school makes its money. I personally, I don't do that. That's not where I get my money. I want the real estate license to be affordable to everybody. So I have a very, very basic premium, and I don't really have an add-on bundle that's going to push you into the 700s. But you got to know you. And if you want the add-on bundle, by all means, get the add-on bundle. So now let's talk about that add-on bundle. I don't think you need it. Maybe I'm shooting myself in the foot because I could make more money if I sold you the add-on bundle, but I don't, you don't need it. I've been teaching this school long enough. You don't need it. When you go to take your state exam, everyone is so worried about failing the state exam, and you are rightfully so worried because the pass ratio for the first-time test takers on the state exam is about 50%. It depends on the month. Sometimes it's 50%, sometimes it's 55, sometimes it's 48. But on average, somebody taking the state of Florida real estate license exam is about 50%. On the second and third or fourth or 15th attempt, the pass ratio is more like 40%. And you're wondering, well, how are they doing worse the second and third or 50th time than they did the first time? And that is because when I see people fail the exam the first time, what ends up happening is they go back and study exactly what they missed, and they just don't study anything else. And then when they go in, they get a whole different set of questions, and they're like, well, wait a second. And they do worse because they didn't go back and study all of the material on there. So when you don't pass, and you're in good company, if you don't beat yourself up. Go back and study the major components of it again. Now, there is no correlation between passing or failing however many of times and your income. I know plenty of people that pass the first time and have amazing incomes, as well as many that are broke and left the business. Okay. They're just good test takers. That's all. And I have seen people that have taken the test 15 times, 15, and have a horrible income. But I've also seen them have $1 million incomes. So it just comes down to if you are a good test taker or not. Now, how do you set yourself up to do well on the state exam? There's this thing, it's called Google, and the other one is called YouTube. As crazy as that sounds, if you were to Google free exam questions, Florida real estate, or any combination thereof, you know what? Let's just not even talk about it. Let's just do it. Florida real estate exam questions. Here's all these different websites, okay? Most of these are free. There's some sponsored ones in here. So let's look at this one, 100 free questions. Free, 100 questions. Here's what you do. You go here and you answer those 100 questions. So when you go in here, it's going to tell you how to pass, and it's going to say, okay, here's a real estate examination. And it's going to say start quiz. And there's your 100 questions. And so here's your first question. So Wilson and Company has developed a 60-lot subdivisions and have built 10 homes for sale. This building type is called A. Now, here's the great thing. I know what the answer is. I'm going to lie. I'm going to say it's a ranch. That's a style of home. But I want you to see. it tells me I'm wrong. Okay. And then it tells me why I am wrong and it gives me the right answer. So you have hundreds of sites that will give you 100 questions for free. And so why do you need to buy a test bank that's going to give you 500 or 600 questions for free, or maybe only 100 questions for free, when you can go and get all of them for free anyway? Now, when you go someplace like this and you end up, doing the 100 questions and you end up failing it, listen, all right, that's a marketing ploy, because if I were to take this exam and pass it, then they wouldn't have anything to sell me. I would be like, oh, you know what? I'm doing so great. I've got this. But if I fail it, I'm going to feel bad about myself. And I'm going to think, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to buy their bundle. I'm going to have to pay for all of these things so that I can pass the state exam. That's how money is made. This is what their business is. So it makes sense. But they're giving you 100 questions for free and answers. So then you just go to the next site after you take those 100 and you go over here, and here's my next site. And you start taking the exams. Now, the reason I like for you to go to all these different sites is every site has a way that they ask the questions. But when you go to take the state exam, there's not one test writer for all the questions. There's a lot of test writers. So if you wanted to know, like that question right there, that could be answered 10 different ways, because there could be 10 different test writers for the exact same question. And so the more times you can see the same question written in entirely different ways, the better you are going to have of answering the question correctly for the state exam and passing it. So that would be my recommendation to you, is to take as many free exams as possible. I'm just going to pick an answer here because I want to see if they give me the right answer. Okay, this one doesn't. This one lets you get to the end and then it will give you a pass or fail. And then that's where you feel bad about yourself. And then you end up getting, see, it says get more practice, pay more money. So if you want to pay money and it makes you feel better because you've done that, by all means, go ahead. I'm not going to talk you out of it, because you got to feel good about your decision at the end. But I'm saying, I know you don't need to buy anything. I know you can get everything you need online. And there's this also, like, if you're having a problem truly understanding something and you're like, hey, I just don't get this, and you need someone to talk about it, again, ooh, math. Everyone's got problems with, I put match, but it's math. So she's great at doing math on here. Here's questions also. So these are ones where they're explaining it to you. Let me, hopefully, um, you can go to any one of these websites and you can watch a video. I'm hoping it finishes playing soon. Oh, that's what I need to do. You can watch a video and they will walk you through the question and answer, and then we'll explain it to you, so that if that helps you to see it in person, let me see if it's right there. Yeah. So she's going through the questions here, and then she's giving you the answer, and then she's explaining to you why that is the way it is. So there's so much information out there for free. So now we've covered your background check with your fingerprints. We've just covered your application with the state. We have covered your real estate course, whether it's online or in person. We have covered your studying for the state exam. And that is really, really, that's really it. That's all you need to do. I know it sounds like all you need to do, but it's not any harder than that. You don't need to make it any harder than this. Now, if you are looking for, we'll turn that off. If you are looking for a broker, where do you want to work and on getting your real estate license? While you're studying for your exam and you're going through your course, by all means, do your research. Again, YouTube and Google. If you're going to go with a name brand company or a franchise, you can Google that. There's a lot of videos out there on why I joined and why I left. So you'll hear everything on there. Definitely ask the people at that company why they're there. But also, if you know somebody who left, ask them why they left. I believe all brokerages are great. Okay. All brokerages are great. You've got to find the one that is best for you. Just because this company was amazing for my friend or my family member does not make it amazing for me because the style is different, the culture is different, and I'm different. So find and talk to people, find out what their culture is like, their learning style, are they in person? Are they online only? Are they, somebody who's really, really big on like cold calling or door knocking, or are they more social media forward? All good. You just got to find out the one that's right for you. And if you made a bad pick, not a problem. Change as soon as possible. I can't tell you where my friends worked at before they are where they are. Like I know where they're at now, but I couldn't tell you where they were 4 years ago. And what does it matter? Because it doesn't affect my pocketbook, it affects their pocketbooks. So everybody wants to know because they're in the gossip mail, but you're going to be too busy for that. So don't worry about that. Find out where you want to go. If you find out it's not a good fit, change. If you keep changing a lot, I'd say look in the mirror though and find out, is it them or is it you? Because you're going to find somebody who's a good fit. But if it's like your 10th year in and this is your 100th brokerage, I don't know. I'm not thinking it's the brokerage at that point. So um, that should be everything you need to get your real estate license. And remember, you cannot go to work. You're sitting in the parking lot, you've got your passing score, and you've said, hey, I'm ready to go to work. You can't physically go to work until you've picked a brokerage and that brokerage has gone online here to the DBPR and put you on the website. So that would look like find a license. Let's see. It's easier to do it this way. The BPR license lookup. So here is how you would find it. I'll use myself as an example. And it says here is where I'm licensed and I'm currently active. So that is when you can go to work. If it says inactive, it means you cannot go to work until a broker has put you into this portal underneath their company and it says current and active on there. Then you can go to work. Otherwise, you're not supposed to do that. So if there's any questions that you have on getting your real estate license, anything that we've covered, feel free to reach out to me. Let me know. I definitely wish you the best of luck. And you, like I said, you don't need to spend a lot of money. You just got to be smart about it and get your license and work as fast as you can to pass it the first time, because every single time after that, it actually gets worse and worse. So thank you guys for joining me. I hope you have a great day and I'll see you on the next call. Bye.